So our next speaker is Katarina Pohen. She will be talking about surveying the social comfort of body, device, and environment-based augmented reality interactions in confined passenger spaces using mixed reality composite videos. Without further ado, let's welcome.
Thank you for the introduction, and sorry for the really long title. So I'm very excited to talk a little bit about our work in Glasgow here. So we're interested in AR interaction techniques in public transport and the social acceptability of these techniques. And I'm presenting this work in behalf of my co-authors, Daniel, Romain, Julie, Graham, and Mark. So first off, why are we interested in using AR in public transport? What are the benefits of this? So as we all know, with AR, we have complete control over the space around us. So you can have multiple displays around you, and you're no longer restricted to small displays like your laptop or tablet. You also don't need to carry these devices around with you anymore, so all you need is a small pair of glasses, and you can interact with anything you want. You can work productively, you can watch videos, you basically can do whatever you want while on public transport. But the way we interact with these devices might not be as socially acceptable in public spaces yet as we would hope them to be. The main interaction techniques that we have at the moment for XR devices are mid-air gestures, so you can use your controller, or you can use your fingers and hands to interact with the virtual environments. These are quite large movements, and they often also intrude in other passenger space. So if you've ever been on public transport, you know there's a person sitting next to you, you don't have that much space, and you don't really want to intrude in their personal space while interacting with these devices. So we wanted to see how socially acceptable these interaction techniques are. So we tested these two very common ones, and we came up with 10 other ones just to see which ones were preferred by participants. And that brings us to our next question. Public transport doesn't always look the same. It depends what type of public transport you're using, plane, bus, train, or subway. There's various different seating arrangements. So you could be seated face-to-face with another person, you could be looking at a seat back, you could be sitting in a row by yourself or with multiple other people. So we wanted to know whether where you're sitting on public transport also affects the social acceptability of these interaction techniques. And so far, these kind of things have been tested with video surveys. So you take a video of an interaction in the environment that you're interested in, and the extent to which these videos are shot in a way that depicts realistic interaction scenarios can vary, and it's quite hard to get footage across different scenarios, particularly if they're quite inaccessible or hard to get to. So for our study, this would mean we would have to find various different types of public transport, anything from buses, trains, planes, and maybe even in different countries, because we don't have access to all of them in Glasgow. And then we would have to try a way to shoot all these interaction techniques on public transport, and you can imagine that could be quite expensive and maybe even impossible and time-consuming. So we came up with a quite interesting solution. So we created mixed reality composited videos of these situations, and that allowed us to create all of these scenarios without having to travel around the world to do so, freeing us from the restrictions of the real world. And the way we done this is we had a virtual environment, so we had the virtual seating layout, and then we filmed a real person in front of a green screen performing all these interaction techniques for the different locations, and then in the next step we just put these together to create little video clips of all of these scenarios. I just want to quickly introduce you to all of the locations so you get an idea of what we looked at. So we had single row seating where you're just facing the seat back of the person in front of you. Then we had the same thing where you're facing another person and you have a table in between you, and then the same thing without the table. Also multiple rows facing the seat back of the person in front of you, multiple rows facing another person but you're quite far away. So this is quite common in subways, and you can see that there might even be other people standing between you and the person in front of you. Then we have multiple seat rows face-to-face with a table, and then the same thing without a table. And then we had our interaction techniques. So we created body-based, device-based, and environment-based interaction technique. And if you're interested in why we chose these types, have a look at our paper. But just a quick video so you can have a look at what they all look like, if it works. There we go. So for body-based interaction techniques, you can use your leg or your thigh to interact with the virtual content. You can use your face, you can use your foot, so you can stomp your foot, palm, or you can use quite common mid-air interactions. Then for device-based one, you could use a smartwatch, you can use a ring, or the more common ones, you could use a rested controller, or even mid-air interactions with controller. And then lastly, we have our environment-based techniques, where you could use the armrest of the chair that you're sitting in, you could use a table in front of you, or the seat back. And as you can imagine, some of the environment-based ones are not suitable for all locations. So if you're facing another person, there's no seat back, so you can't really use that technique for that location. So there were 9 techniques that we could use in all locations, and that's the one we focused mainly on for this talk. And the way we've done is we presented all of these online to our participants in the survey. Participants were introduced to the location, they got a quick description of what the situation looked like, and then we played the videos to them for all the different interaction techniques. And after each interaction technique, we asked them to rate the social acceptability or the social comfort of this technique. And we asked them to do this once from the perspective of a bystander. So if you see another person wearing the AR headset interacting with the content, or we asked them to imagine that they are the person using this technique and how socially comfortable they would feel performing all of these interactions. When we started analyzing the data, we didn't actually find a difference between bystanders or users. So we kind of put these scales together and just treated them as one for this analysis. The analysis gets quite complicated, so if you're really interested in it, have a look at our paper. But just to highlight quickly our main findings. So for location, we found that people preferred seating locations where they weren't facing another person. So the single row or the multiple row where they're looking at the seat back of the person in front of them, that was the most preferred one, because there was less chances of them interacting or intruding in another person's personal space, and they were also less noticeable to other people. When it came to interaction techniques, that had a stronger effect on social comfort compared to location, kind of what we expected. And we found that people preferred interaction techniques with quite small movements and where you wouldn't intrude on other people's personal space. So the smartwatch or the ring were quite popular, and our more traditional interaction techniques like gesturing within mid-air and using the controller weren't very popular. There wasn't really a big effect of these techniques depending on locations. We kind of found the same for all of our locations, but when we looked at locations where people weren't facing another person, the mid-air interaction techniques were more socially comfortable than when you were facing another person. And then to just have a quick look at our 3 types of interaction techniques as well. So overall, people did not like body-based techniques. So they didn't like touching their face to interact with AR content, or I guess stomping their foot. I guess they perceived this as quite intrusive. So they preferred the environment and device-based techniques over that. So to sum this all up, just quickly, with our new way of looking at social comfort, so mixed reality composited videos, they offer a new powerful extension to existing techniques, to social acceptability video surveys. And we think this is a great way of testing these things quickly, because it gives research an early tool to explore social comfort in different inaccessible or maybe even imagined scenarios. And it allows us to investigate all of these AR interaction techniques in these different types of public transport. But our findings also highlighted a tension between passengers' comfort and the anticipated future need of AR users. So the interaction techniques that are most suitable to interact with spatial content, so mid-air hand tracking or mid-air gestures, they were perceived as the least socially acceptable. So this highlights the need that we need to find or develop new, more socially acceptable interaction techniques for AR, and to adapt existing techniques to bolster social comfort. So you could, for example, make sure that a participant is always aware where other people are in the space around them and if they're intruding into personal space. So if it's very clear that you're now getting too close to another person, then that could help make these techniques more socially acceptable. And in our study, as I mentioned, we didn't find a difference between bystanders and users, but this could obviously be different with different types of headsets. So imagine you're wearing a VR headset and you can't see anything around you, you can't see the other people. Maybe that affects social comfort, or maybe for different tasks if you have different types of people using these headsets. So to sum it up quickly, AR headsets can significantly improve passengers' experience, but the constrained space of public transport and the proximity to other passengers can have an effect on how we interact with the virtual content, especially if we want to avoid social rejections. So we need to find a way to make these techniques more socially acceptable. Thank you for listening, and if you have any questions. So I don't think it's that futuristic anymore. A lot of the new headsets are looking into using it in transport. So the new Apple headset, there's parts of it that hint towards them wanting to use it in public transport. And we've tested different devices on cars and things, so it's quite possible to use it in this space. I think the main issue in public transport particularly is the social acceptability, because people really don't know what to do with a person yet that's wearing particularly a VR headset where everything's occluded. So if you've ever, we've tried it, we've tried VR headsets on a plane just to see if they work, and you get looks from everyone, and it gets quite awkward. So I think that's the main problem at the moment.